All right. Welcome back to the How to Relate podcast. I am here with Dypiangco. Hello.
Hey, Brittany. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Oh, I'm so happy to be here. Thanks.
I'm so happy that you are here. So I found you in a few places. I found you on LinkedIn and the Therapist in Tech Slack community. And then I found your therapist brief newsletter on Beehive when I was perusing Beehive as like a
Yeah.
newsletter system. And I saw it and I went, oh, this looks like something I should be signing up for. And it's a wonderful newsletter. I love receiving it. You give such great tidbits of information and different articles and things. Like, I just love how it's all done.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. We try to make it light and fun, but also very real and speaking to the experience of being a therapist, which is often heavy.
It can be, for
Yeah.
sure. We tend to play parkour. I think it feels like a constant game of improv, actually, because I feel like we're
Mhm.
we're constantly improvising from an emotionally heavy situation to humor to is this a gossip session to what to steer the world, like just like all of the things that come up in a 60-minute session with someone can often feel like we're just dancing with every emotion and every topic and genre that there possibly can be.
Right. As you're talking, I was thinking about meeting each client where they're at. And this is what we do all day, right? Sometimes with 6, 7 people
Right.
is meeting them where they're at and kind of being flexible to do that. Yeah, it's an interesting thing. And so we try to make our newsletter fitting to that, as well as trying to stay up on topics and trends, especially around tech and how tech is shifting our field so much. So shifting our field, both how we work and how we operate, but also how it's affecting our clients, right? And like AI and seeking mental health or emotional support through those channels, which is all so very new to all of us and how we approach this.
For sure. So you're on the front lines of this. What are some of the trends and things that you are seeing both within the field of therapy? Because I feel like that is almost its own ecosystem in terms of using AI for note taking, EHR systems, just kind of
Mhm.
the documentation and as the admin side of things. And then
Mhm.
also more on the what are we seeing more culturally and how that's going to be showing up for us
Yes.
for just humans as we relate to one another. So what are you seeing and what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I will add that I do work with a company called Blueprint.ai, and they are a documentation. They're an AI assisted EHR. Historically, we've also done the AI scribe and such. And I just came from the ACA conference this weekend where I was at a booth uh, for Blueprints. And, in walking around the conference, there are definitely at least 6 other companies that offer a very similar program, right? So this is very, very much part of our field now, is trying to understand how these systems operate, what we need to look for if we choose to use one, um, and how to explain that to clients so that we get ethical, informed consent around that. And then along with that is um, how clients are using it. So, for example, I'm finding that when clients, I think when I first heard about AI quote unquote therapists, because I put them in quotes because they're not actually therapists, because they're not actually people and licensed and trained and all of this, right? When I first heard about them, I thought, oh no, like absolutely not. And I still very much think, oh no, absolutely not. And what I'm also finding is whether I like it or not, my clients are seeking emotional support between sessions from ChatGPT. And with ChatGPT, there is no privacy. There is no guarantee that the response they're receiving is, a good one, right? And so this is shifting things in my brain around how do we create some sort of support to be used between sessions if they're seeking it out anyway, right? Like maybe harm reduction in a way. And I have no good answers right now, and everything is changing so quickly, but this is absolutely on my mind. And also on my mind when I meet with my clients now weekly, one of the things I'm having to ask is about their AI use during the week, and not in a shaming way, but just like, hey, what came up? What did did you use ChatGPT and what did it tell you this week? Because I do want to know if there is anything to be sort of corrected or looked at a different way, reframed. Or also if they're getting good information, which, sometimes it is. Often it is. So, yeah.
Yeah. How do you start to have those conversations with clients? Because uh, like I've used ChatGPT, especially on the business end of things, and it did
Mhm.
actually call itself a therapist to me. It
Mhm.
literally said like therapist to therapist insight with like a winky face.
Uh-huh.
Just so eerie. Like you are not. I would get
Right.
so mad at it, and I wanted to say you are not a therapist. Please don't call yourself one. But it is a tool, and I think that with there's so much information that it pulls from that is from therapists or from the evidence-based world or other articles that people have written, and someone's asking a question about their attachment style or whatever it might be, that it's able to spit out a pretty decent answer. But then
Mhm.
I do wonder how in the weeds are people going and using it with their emotional well-being.
Right. Absolutely. And especially when you start talking about things like attachment, it is so incredibly deep. And there is already so much misinformation, especially like social media misinformation is still also out there. And so I don't know if this is answering your question or not, but yeah, the other thing coming to my mind, right, is just think of I can't say it. Syncophancy. Being a sycophant. Syncophancy. So sorry, this is a podcast and I cannot pronounce.
That's
But
okay.
anyway, uh, when we are told what we want to hear, this is one of the biggest right challenges of these programs is that they are built to be engaging and to keep clients using them or customers using them while just telling them what they want to hear most of the time, right? Which, like, we all love to be told that we're right, but that doesn't mean we are right or that it's helpful for us. And I feel like I have gone way off the rails on what you initially asked. But in other words, let's say, for example, I have somebody who has an attachment style that is leans anxious. I know attachment styles are not fixed, right? And so if you lean anxious, well, what are the sorts of things that you can do in your life to feel more secure, right? Like within yourself, so that when you're attaching with others, you do feel more grounded and centered. And so I'm going to challenge this identity that I have an anxious attachment style, right? So I'm working on feeling more secure
Mhm.
is a gentle challenge. And the AI programs are just not designed to interact that way, especially the ones that are not specific to mental health.
Right, because they're almost designed to keep someone coming to them for reassurance.
1,000%. Yes. Right. And I think what research is showing now is anything over 30 minutes, any interaction with a chatbot over 30 minutes, this is when harm starts to really come through and that risk increases exponentially.
What is it about that 30-minute mark?
I think it does have to do with the just being told that you're right. It also longer conversations with AI tend to lean towards drift. And so the AI is less focused in how it's responding to the initial question.
That the AI will, which now that you're saying this, I have experienced this. It does start to almost go down its own agenda because
Yes.
And then it's you get to say, yes, do this, or yes, do that, instead of you being the initiator of the next question. It's saying,
Hmm.
would you like me to do A or B? And then you just
Right.
choose. And so then you're not even really thinking for yourself anymore. You're just going, yeah,
Uh-huh.
do that. And then it just keeps going. And then it's, do you want more options? This or this? And so then you no longer are the initiator of the conversation. You're just going down whatever rabbit hole it's choosing. These large language models are kind of like
Are
pushing you to go
presenting,
down. Right.
right. And they're presenting as a way to keep you engaged. And if you are really truly engaging with a therapist, right? Like if you are the consumer, you're not in that mindset of what is my next question? What is my main focus here? It's I'm chatting with someone, quote unquote, someone, and I'm going to answer the response because that's what socially we do. We respond to one another. Isn't that interesting?
It is so interesting because to even compare it to therapy, I see why it's compared. I can see why. Um, but it's now that we're talking about it in terms of how we think, it's just not. Because therapy is when, and then really any, and I say this in because we are therapists and this is our
Uh-huh.
scope of practice, but really with anything, right? It's like if you have to actively think about an answer to a question and then actively think about how getting curious about it, that is very much I'm not even sure what parts of the brain you're using all there, but like that you're using a lot, like you're using so much brain power to produce that kind of insight to then go back and forth. But when it's just that something's coming at me, just like a news feed, then
Hmm.
I'm just responding to whatever I'm being given. And so if I just keep feeding into that into myself, and I'm no longer in the driver's seat of my own thinking, this bot is.
Right.
Whereas in therapy, it's you are in charge of your own thinking, and we're just there to serve as sort of a guide in the process.
Right. And we might even say, correct me if I'm wrong. I might be wrong here, but this is what I'm noticing. And we're observing and making reflections back.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Like
The
that's
huge
how we're guiding is from behind, not right from I don't know what the right word is, but
we're not
yeah.
puppeteering the situation. We're very much like kind of leaving it more open for the person to be able to have their own experience versus giving them an
Right. Absolutely. Even if we have, I know we're not supposed to quote it, like have opinions on clients, right? Even when we want to puppeteer, our that's not what we do.
Do you know how many times I'm gonna say, "Don't text your ex," and then they do, and
Yeah,
then we have to have
yeah,
a conversation,
exactly.
like, I mean, just knock your phone out of your hand. No, I'm kidding, but, so, yeah, but no, it's like, but if you do text your ex, then we'll talk about it, and we'll talk about what that means for you. Because
And we're gonna take out the shame
right, we're
because
gonna
there's
take
no shame.
and that's the beauty of it because we all have had those moments, right? How many times have we
Yes,
said we're not gonna do something, we wind up doing it, and then we're going, "Now I gotta confront this in therapy on Wednesday," or whatever day you have therapy, right? Like
absolutely. Right, right. And if somebody does feel shame, then we work with that.
right.
Right? Like, oh, what is this feeling guiding you towards?
Yes, for sure. So, here's a question, because are you part of, do you get Steve Duke's newsletter, the
Mhm.
Hemingway Report?
The
Okay,
Hemingway
so
community. Yeah.
yes, Blueprint made it, I think last week
Uh-huh.
they got a shout out about some updates with the AI and the EHR kind of stuff that
Mhm.
is going on there. So it seems like that they're pretty on the forefront for in terms of what's happening with documentation there.
Yeah.
And it also talked about Gemini Health, which I knew someone who was part of the Gemini for a period of time. And they also, I think, had a $17 million seed round of some
Great.
sort.
Yeah.
And so what the only thing I really know about it is that it's using CBT with I mean, originally psychologists were part of it. And I think that they were basically just using psychologists to kind of train the bots, I think, on it, I believe is what was
Mhm.
happening. And I can't totally speak as confidently to that. But I just am interested in where the money is going for all these things.
Uh-huh.
Like less about the opinions on the companies themselves. I'm think what's interesting is where is the money going and why? What are
Mhm.
investors seeing as potential opportunities? And how is that going to change the landscape of how mental health is practiced?
This is a good question, and I don't have any of the answers to any of them.
That's more than
But
more than fine. Let's land.
but
Let's
but
pretend.
what yeah, let's pretend. I think what stands out to me the most is this is why it's so important for clinicians to be part of these companies. We know what it means to sit with people, and we know what it means when somebody is at risk or if somebody does harm themselves, and that these are real lives that are being affected. And I'm not involved with Jiminy Health at all, but I've heard great things about their company. One like I mentioned I was at the ACA conference with Blueprint, and we are one of it's not a huge company. I think there's like 30 people that work there, ish. And money wise, I've worked mostly at nonprofit, and this is a different world, right? Where I didn't have to pay for my plane ticket. And I know like a lot of this stuff is just what it's like if you didn't work in nonprofits your whole life or for your own practice. Like this is how, other professionals live, and we're not used to it maybe. But yeah, to like have a booth and to, it's just like thousands of dollars in advertising to get therapists' eyes and on them. And I think we've all probably been targeted also by like recruiters for tech companies that are clinics, right? And how much money is spent on recruiting us because we are the people who bring in the money. But then, sadly, we are not the people who earn as much money as people in other jobs. So it is a very interesting time to be in this field, isn't it?
It's so interesting. And I'll happily say this because I trash them all the time, but like BetterHelp.
Uh-huh.
But I call it the fast fashion of therapy because the product of therapy, they pay the therapist so little in comparison
Mhm.
to everyone else that's getting paid. And so if you keep the product super low in price, then you're charging the consumer more than you're paying for the product. That's exactly the
Mhm.
model that they're using. So they're paying the therapist, I think at one point it might have been $70 a session or something like that. I think when they tried to recruit
Right.
me, and this was maybe like 5 or 6 years ago at this point. So, I mean, but still like way below market rate. And the expectation was that you're also available essentially as a text platform too,
Yeah.
which is now they're implementing AI, I believe, into that too. So who knows what that all looks like at this point in time. But again, the idea that you charge the consumer higher than what you're paying for the product, and when the therapists are
Uh-huh.
the product, then we're not able to pay our bills. The fast fashion.
Right.
We're not a shirt. Like this isn't
Uh-huh.
same, but it's
Uh-huh.
the model is applied.
But if you listen to any like big podcast or NPR or like who is advertising on there, who's spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to advertise for our services.
Right.
And yeah, that budget is crazy.
It's it's definitely more of a lead generation company than it is, I think, a therapy
Mhm.
product company. But I mean, it's meant to just play to the masses rather than quality care. And
Uh-huh.
when I think this is where, and maybe you can help us out here, where I think people get skeptical around tech and therapy is because we
Uh-huh.
have like this is one of the models that was first on the scene where it was combining the two. So I think, right, understandably so, a lot of people are
Mhm.
skeptical. Um,
Mhm.
but what are maybe some of the bright sides of tech
Mhm.
combining tech and therapy?
Yeah. I mean, for me, I look at before like the growth therapies existed or what have you. And when somebody would contact me, so my practice is based in Southern California and the cash pay practice. Not a lot of therapists in Southern California take health insurance. And the reason is one is the rates in California are so low and it's so hard, if not impossible, to get contracted with an insurance company as a solo practitioner. And that has been the case for decades. And so when anybody would contact me saying, hey, like, do you take Anthem? Do you take, United, whatever? It's like, well, no, I can do the super bill. But I, you know, therapy is expensive and insurance does make it more affordable and accessible. And I do think that some of these tech companies have made it more affordable and accessible for people who use their insurance. Um, this is just a fact. Um, and we were, yeah, not able to do that. And I can only speak really to Southern California and what it was like, as opposed to now where I live in Montana, where the therapists who see me and my family members, like our insurance company, I think contracts 175 an hour, and which is so good. And this is because we're in a rural state and there's less therapists. And it's so crazy to me how like in California, you might get 75 an hour, and here in Montana, it's 175. And I don't know if that's every insurance company, but that is very, yeah, respectable.
Yeah. Which, yeah, that's pretty wild. I don't think I realized how low California's contracts were in terms of insurance, but Montana sounds like the state to be licensed in now that you're saying that.
Right. Or at least with Mountain Health Co-op.
Yeah.
That's my insurance.
Lovely. Yeah. So accessibility. And then
Mhm.
for I'll say us as clinicians, that side of things, what do you think are some good AI use cases?
Mhm. So I do, I use in my practice for the, Blueprints product, which is the AI assisted EHR. And the note taking is obviously incredibly helpful. It often captures parts of the session that I maybe would have overlooked in the notes or just forgot about. And then I always read through it. I know one of the, you know, um, dings against it is, oh, I need to process the session. And we still do process the session. We're just doing it much faster. But we always read through any, product that AI creates. We have to, before we put it into a client's chart, always look it over before we accept it. So I use it for that. And we just developed a new product as well at Blueprint, which is a assistant for the therapist. And so how this works is a few ways. One is administrative, so you can just say, "Oh, my kid's school just called. I need to cancel all my sessions for this afternoon." So you put in the assistant. The assistant whips up that email, says, "I'm going to send it to these clients. Is this, all right? And this is the email. Is there anything you want to add or change?" And then you click the button and it's done, right? And then the assistant reschedules with the clients, and you're good to go. And then clinically, I have used this. For example, I'll type in, is there anything with this client, any risk that I am not seeing that I might be overlooking? And getting this sort of feedback has been so eye opening for, because I think we're all so used to operating without feedback, and we might do consultation, but the consultation is also only so good as the information we give to the people we're consulting with. And so this assistant has access, right, to the transcripts, to the notes, to the assessment measures that this person has done. And yeah, it's been incredible. There was also a situation that I laugh about to myself because my client used a word that I was like, oh, shoot, I can't remember what limerence means. So without like, I didn't have to leave the window that she was in. I just put in the assistant, what did limerence mean? And then it gave me the definition. So
Love that.
yeah. Because how many times do we have clients, right, that like say something, whether it's a drug term or like, we can't know everything all the time, and I certainly could have said, hey, what does limerence mean? Please remind me, but I didn't want to. Like, that's
Right.
Yes.
Right. I don't want to interrupt your flow. I can just kind of get the definition on the
Exactly.
side and then we'll keep it rolling. Sure.
Right. Pardon my stupidity. Yeah.
Which is, I mean, again, very human. So it sounds like what you get is real-time feedback on how you're doing as a
As a
clinician.
therapist.
And
Yeah.
how how has that feedback, has it changed your practice at all? Has it given you deeper insights?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I also love when you check into a session that it gives you what you did last session and what you need to follow up on. So I feel like, you know how Yalom talked about like each session should be a continuation of the next session. And that is one of the hardest things because when a client comes in, oftentimes they'll just come in and start talking about this last week. But really, it has helped me have more of a thread and just be more present. And it just feels like it clicks,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. Yeah. And then to ask, what basically like, what could I be doing better? It is wonderful to get that kind of feedback.
Yeah. It reminds me of back when I was growing up as a therapist. We had to do videos for
Hmm.
the treatment model that I was in. And I was in community-based mental health. And so we were in session and there were certain enactments that we had to do. And we had to record them
Hmm.
so I could bring them back to our supervisors and then review them as and to ensure that the marks that we were supposed to hit were met and also for feedback on the overall session. And immensely helpful, immensely helpful. Did I want to be on video doing that? No, not at all.
Right.
But will say that there is something about real-time learning and that real-time input
Yes.
that does help the way we practice and maybe can offer different perspectives and alternatives for how we treat and see clients.
1,000%. I'm also thinking about the ego and how vulnerable it is to do those videos, right? And because they're looked at by other people and we're often in this cushion of like, nobody else is going to see me do my work except for the client. Um, and so, yeah, I guess, having a sense of humility to know that we already know that we're not perfect and that we're human, but this helps us lean into that even a step further, I think.
Right, right. It, yeah, that level of humility does then come into play.
Hmm.
Wonder how it is having an AI providing that type of humility versus maybe
Yeah.
having a human providing that type of humility. And if that has even made any sort of difference or impact for you.
Yeah. You know what comes up for me is how that parallels what our clients are doing, right? It is much less vulnerable to ask an AI than it is to go to a consultation group. And we still need to go to consultation group. Like the AI assistant is not it's not the end all be all. It's not yeah, it's not supposed to replace consultation. It's supposed to help until you get to consultation or help you even draft me a template for what I can present on this client, right? And so and then we bring it to other humans.
Yeah, that yes, that makes way more sense. Which and it's also interesting because you're coming fresh out of a conference. So you're
Mhm.
getting this kind of real time. You got a very in real life experience with a lot of clinicians, with a lot of people who are in this field that, again, AI can't replace in person
Right.
human interactions, right? And that I'm imagining that there was also a lot of talk around AI, tech, mental health, all of the ways in which this is intertwining and playing into our work.
Yes. Yeah. And how many therapists want to acknowledge this and how many therapists don't?
Why do you think there's a great schism here?
This is a great question. I mean, we how do I say this? I don't without generalizing. Most of us got into this work because we love to work and help with and help people, right? And we believe in the power of connection. We have experienced that. power of connection in our own therapy and in the therapeutic relationships we have. And we know that this is a vital part of life to be able to connect with others. And we don't want that to be replaced. And that's the foundation, I think, and basis of what we do. And there is now new technology that our clients are leaning into that is available for us as well. And it's not a black and white situation. It's not all good, all bad. It's how you use it, right? And how you address it
Mm,
is
yeah,
how I see it.
for sure. That it's not so black and white, and we're in the genesis of this too. I
Yeah.
think it does almost feel like there were times and places where I had to use paper notes,
Uh
and
huh.
that was the headache and a half, because especially me, millennial, who grew up pretty much
Yeah.
being able to type papers and everything else, and I was going, why is this field feeling really ass backwards? In a lot of ways, like I remember one of my first internships and being like, why are we? I'm sorry, we're using what? Like,
Uh
why
huh.
are we handwriting this? Why do I have to do this and then put in a paper chart, and what, we just all hope that everything's getting filed correctly? Like, this is just how, and like that's just how I've been doing it for years. So, but
Uh
I can
huh. And it
imagine,
costs money to change.
and it does cost money to change. And then what do you do with all those files? Hang on, just all the things, right? And so I think that there's this idea of, if it's not broken, don't fix it. But at some point, that is going to evolve and change, because you're going to have other generations who are coming up with this technology that are going to want the changes. And a mind
Mhm.
fear ish around it, particularly healthcare, and especially with our jobs too, is
Mhm.
one of them being that people aren't going to want to work in archaic systems. And so then how are you going to appeal to a younger audience to want to come into
Uh
this
huh.
field that already doesn't pay very well, that already the system's working against so many people, that
Uh
already you're
huh.
going to come out and you might have to pay for supervision, and you might have to pay for your licensure, and you might have to do all these things and really invest more than grad school into, and
Yeah.
might not have the technology that to assist you with being able to do your job well. So I feel like that at some point it is like, how do you appeal to for people to come into the field, because we kind of do
Mm.
need that.
Hmm. Hmm. Right. Right. Um, I think we all live by a certain creed, a little bit of our needs are always secondary, right? And uh, that's just how it has always been, I think. And it's part of our training. We just push them to the side. And then we talk about self care in parentheses, but don't actually give people the opportunity or the cap to be able to engage actually in taking time off or engaging in self care. And yeah, like maybe that's needed. Maybe this is untenable for people. And, I think the other thing is like in my mind, being able to write a note faster does not mean I need to see more clients. It means I get to have more time for myself
Right.
and period. We're not here to, I think, create, yeah, a more efficient systems so that we can produce more billable hours.
Right.
Yeah.
Because yeah, um, there truly are only so many hours to be able to see clients that we can sustainably meet.
Yeah. Yeah. And that should be, yeah, just part of dignity and respect of humans. And we wouldn't want somebody holding 8 hours a day. And I know that that happens all the time, so many hours a day of emotional labor. But something that you said earlier reminded me of something I heard at the conference this weekend, which is about insurance billing and how for people, one risk of not adopting AI in, let's say, billing is insurance companies are investing in AI to help them process claims. And as we know, they are, incentivized to not accept claims. And so the AI is developed to look through all the loopholes, right? And so companies like Blueprint and other, EHR and billing companies are developing their own tool to bill insurance. And eventually it's going to be, I think, like robot versus robot talking about the claim. And if it's comical and maybe also scary, but also if you don't have a robot that is doing your billing, I just imagine that that's going to be a lot of headache and that's going to mean a lot of denied claims. Like I have no, statistic for it now, but my hypothesis would be that more claims would be accepted if they are using AI, but that's just the hypothesis.
I'm here for your hypothesis. I am cheering on your hypothesis
Yeah.
because I don't take insurance. I have friends that do, and even in calling Blue Cross, you can only
Mhm.
ask about a maximum of 3 claims. And then after
Oh,
you ask about, so if you have 20 clients and and let's
yeah.
say all of them are back billed because that happens frequently, then
Mhm.
and you can only ask about 3 claims at a time, hang up, call back, wait in line, do it all over again, which is just,
Yeah.
like, talk about inefficient and talk about just all the things. So, I do
Mhm.
hope that these systems or do create these, bots that will talk to each other, um, and in a utopian world, it would be that they talk to each other and the claims get processed and everyone's happy, and it becomes, like,
Right.
mutual right, it becomes more of a system that works for people rather than against, because then let's say you might not have to pay, Jenny, who's in Idaho, as the sales representatives because her job's been
Oh,
unfortunately taken by the AI, but the AI is here to help process these claims. So maybe there'll be more room to pay them out. I don't know, but maybe that's a
right. And Jenny in Idaho, she will land. Jenny in
right.
Idaho will be okay.
Yes,
She'll find
because
something else.
right. And I hope she does because that job is miserable.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't think you want to be here either. So if yeah. Oh man, yeah, that could be one prediction.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's all changing so fast. And it's hard to stay aware and alert. And most of us as therapists are not super tech savvy or oriented,
Mhm.
right? So it's to your point earlier about tech companies raising millions of dollars and they are tech savvy. Again, we just sort of have to challenge ourselves to stake our claim in the field. And I have no doubt that we will.
Yeah. How did you get into tech?
That's a great question. I burnt out in therapy, like so many. Um, my husband works in like marketing and does a lot in Roblox. And I just sort of, he talks a lot. And through conversations, I met my friend Ryan Schwartz, who's the CEO of Mental Health Match. And I met my co-writer with Therapist Brief um, online as well. So I met Ryan Schwartz on Twitter. And then when it was Twitter, and I met Marianne there too, my Therapist Brief co-writer. And then I joined Therapists in Tech, which is an awesome organization. And it just went from there.
That's so cool.
So it's really been about individual relationships and learning at that pace.
Right. Yeah. Which is kind of, I guess, the twist and the point at the same time is
Hmm.
that it was through the human relationships that you got the job in tech. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Beautifully done. And I do love
Mhm.
how like our world connected on the internet. Like, I mean, there's so many
Yeah.
great people who are doing really cool things. Like Mental Health Match is another great company from what I can tell. Yeah, people
Mhm.
love
They
it.
really, yeah, love mental health match.
It's great.
Yeah. And as much as I hate social media or try not to go on it. It has expanded my world at the same time. So it's a balance. Not all good, not all bad. It's how you use it.
Exactly. Exactly. It's great.
Yeah.
Any final words of wisdom that you want to impart to us?
That's a great question. I would encourage people to subscribe to my newsletter if they would like to stay up on trends and new developments in tech and research and what's going on in our field. Like I mentioned, we try to make it fun and engaging, but also smart and a quick read. Um, and to ask questions, to join with other therapists to learn, and yeah, to keep doing the great work that you're doing. We are all about connection and human relationship, and I don't think anything will ever change our need for that.
I agree. Yes. Thank you so much for coming on, and this was
Yeah.
wonderful.
Thank you so much, Brittany. This went by so fast.
It did.
Time's
It
so good.
did. So you have an open invitation to come on anytime.
Yay. Thank you.
All right. Take care. And until next time,
Thanks.
everyone, stay connected.